You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Greetings, explorers. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny, joined by
Dennis.
And no Francis, because we're on COVID lockdown.
In fact, Johnny and I are not even in the same room. We're recording separately in our own houses.
Yep. The wonders of modern technology. Today we are discussing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers / Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by writer Ryan Parrott or Parrott. I don't know. We butcher last names on this podcast. And illustrator Simone di Meo. We hope you've already read today's title because I almost said all three of us. Again, I am not reading from a script. So beware, spoilers ahead. Explorers can share their opinions and thoughts with us by leaving a comment on our Facebook page or over on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club. We're also available on YouTube, so go check us out there if that's your thing. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers / Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Horrible title for this book.
Well, it didn't have the verses label, which most of these do.
Oh.
So how much experience do you have with either franchise, Johnny?
So I'm much more familiar with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those became part of the cultural zeitgeist when we were about 14 years old, I think.
Even younger.
I first became aware of it as a freshman or a sophomore in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it before then. And it really took off with the cartoon, and then I played the hell out of the NES Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game.
Well, and obviously the arcade game, too, the 4-player.
Yeah, but that came out later.
Yeah.
I think that came out about, like 91-ish, I think, somewhere in there is when that came out. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, by the time I became aware of them, I was almost out of high school. I know you have a deep dive on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah, well, on both, much like you, I thought I was younger, but I first discovered the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when the comics came out. And I had randomly been to a comic shop, and they had reprinted one of the early issues, and I fell in love with it. I had no idea that it was actually a ripoff / tie-in sort of to Daredevil. Like, if you look at it...
It was making fun of several comic books at the time. Daredevil was one of them. Like Splinter's making fun of Stick.
Right. And then the Foot Clan instead of the hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was making fun of a couple of, but yeah, Daredevil was the big one. And it was,
but it was a black and white comic. I had never seen it before. It was like super violent. It looked pretty cool. So I was really into it.
And that's one of my things. We'll get into a couple of little things right here first, and then we'll go to impressions. But this series was published by Boom Studios in 2019, and there are 5 issues in the series, and we're just covering number 1 in today's episode. I know more about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I thought this book was going to hew closer to their origins, where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a much more violent book, and the original Japanese version of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a lot more violent too.
Right.
And this is very much based on the American properties.
For sure.
The tone, it's all very toned down on both sides.
It's funny that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'll just go back. Yeah, I've been a fan a long time, and then I became a fan of the cartoon a lot. I never had any of the toys, but I did like the cartoons and the video games a ton. I followed the cartoons throughout their ages, up into even the second most recent series, and a lot of times they pay homage to their roots, especially the 80s cartoons. There was in fact one late 90s cartoon where different versions of the cartoons met each other, including the 80s, the 90s, and they met the comic book version, and the comic book versions were like super hardcore. Like the cartoon versions didn't know what to do with them. So that was pretty good. That's a good meta. And then and like you said, I'm a big fan of the Power Rangers. In fact, I had big fan of the Sentai Rangers before they had come to America. So I as a kid, I went to Thailand, and all they had was Kamen Rider, which we called Mot X, which is Bug X, and they had the Sentai Rangers, and I didn't understand a lick of it because it was all in Japanese or Thai, I forget. I would say they were flamboyant. They had scarves, and they rode motorcycles, and they did acrobatics, and then they had all the stuff you would see in the normal Power Rangers, different colors, and they would fight monsters. It was like Ultraman,
so
I totally dug it.
So it was kind of like Cirque du Soleil meets ninjas.
Basically, that is 100% accurate. Plus motorcycles. And like everything in the 70s was motorcycles if you watched any Japanese live action shows. Yeah. I kind of watched a little bit of the first season of Power Rangers, but I wasn't really into it. And then I dropped off after that. I was into girls and everything else. But my son had gotten into Power Rangers. And so thanks to Netflix, I ended up watching every season and everything that I never saw before. So I caught up to like every version of the Power Rangers.
So this series, which era is in this comic book?
This is definitely the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the classic first series that entered America.
Oh, okay.
They went into.
Okay.
And actually, I don't know if you've read any of it, but and we should do it more for the podcast, but the comic book series is actually pretty strong. And it has some pretty good storylines that a lot of Mighty Morphin Power Ranger fans are really into.
Okay. Anyways, to get into the story, it starts off with a couple different panels with different various settings in both continuities. Although in this thing, it seems like they exist in the same world. They're each aware of each other. But yeah,
which I wonder if because they've also done Batman meets the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I wonder if Gotham City's in here too.
This is like the Toys R Us of worlds. You get this scene of the Turtles fortress in the sewers, Angel Grove. My only teenage pop culture reference for where teenagers hang out is the Peach Pit from 90210. So
right, basically.
Yeah.
But I never had that. Did you ever have that? I never had like the main hangout.
No. There was well, we did. We had one when I was in the 8th grade. It was the Del Taco by my house, but that's not cool. Because we could eat there super cheap, or Godfather's Pizza if you live in the Sacramento area.
Oh yeah, I guess this all pays homage maybe to Happy Days, because then they used to hang out at Ralph's or something like that.
No, not Ralph's, Arnold's. But anyways, yeah. So we get the scene of like someone basically, and I'm pretty sure it's Tommy. It'll later turn out to be Tommy.
Right.
Just letting the readers know that the friends you grew up with is basically your chosen family, and they will know you better than anybody else.
Right, because they've seen you grow, and you could drift apart, which is true, but they're still family.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it could be either Tommy doing this voiceover or Raphael.
They're similar characters too.
Yeah, and you never. It's not clear who's doing this by the end of the comic book or this issue. From there, we jump into Angel Grove, where the Power Rangers are fighting Apocalyptopus. Is this an actual character?
No, not as far as I know, but I had to say that name like a billion times because I couldn't pronounce it.
Apocalyptopus.
Without it sounding pornographic.
Yeah. And they're fighting the faceless gray bad guys from the TV show. Do they have a name?
The Putties.
Putties?
The Putties. Because they're made from putty.
No. And Apocalyptopus is trying to destroy the Power Rangers to begin the Mollusk Monarchy. Is this another thing from the TV show? No?
No, it's a lot of the comics have like new unique villains. They're kind of like in the vein of what you would see in the Power Rangers show, which is, ridiculous monsters. But no, as far as I know, this isn't one from the show.
Okay. And then we find out the Green Power Ranger is missing from action, but the Power Rangers combine their weapons to make the Power Blaster, and then they take down this creature. The next scene is at night in New York City, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are fighting a different group of faceless great bad guys, which is the Foot Clan.
Right.
I wonder that's what brought the two properties together. It's like, oh, they both fight
just
faceless bad guys.
Well, at least the Foot guys have swords. I mean, usually the Putties have maybe like a laser gun, but they never use them really well in the show. They just kind of like end up being cannon fodder for the Power Rangers.
Same with the Foot Clan. They just get their asses kicked. True. But yeah, so they're fighting the Foot Clan ninjas. They're bantering about the four turtles are bantering about what they do if they were human while fighting the Foot Clan. And Raphael, the one standout who says he doesn't want to be a human, ends up demasking a Foot Clan ninja who he calls Pretty Boy.
We later find out Tommy. Well, this is one of the problems with the comic book is that when you see that, if you've read the comic book, but even if you've read the comic book, it's hard to discern, it's just a pretty boy guy. You're not exactly sure, is this Tommy? It would have been nice to have a flash of Tommy beforehand so you could tell, that was Tommy, as opposed to just some generic human.
Yeah. Well, like for me, I didn't have any point of reference. So I was like, I was like, him being demasked, like you never see the face of a Foot Clan ninja. I was like, oh, he must be somebody important. And then I was like, he's probably Tommy.
Right.
Raphael calls him Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy winds up kicking Raphael's butt and escapes with the ninjas. Right. In fact, he even says ninjas vanish, which I thought was funny how the turtles wind up making fun of him for doing that.
Right. Well, and it's funny because, that's a big thing in the Power Rangers and really a lot of Japanese properties. They announce their moves. I mean, what, Street Fighter? I mean, when you're in a street fight, you're not going to start naming your moves.
Yeah. Uppercut.
Right. Yoga Flame.
Yeah. Back in Angel Grove, the Power Rangers are lamenting how their secret identities can take a toll on their personal lives because the yellow Power Ranger failed a test. And then we cut to Kim, who's the Pink Ranger, asking a floating head. I don't know who the floating head is.
Zordon.
Mm-hmm. What does Zordon do?
He's like the guy who brought the Power Rangers together. Teenagers with attitude. Yeah, he's the main like head honcho. He's like what's his name from Charlie's Angels? Oh,
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. That's right. Charlie himself.
Is he an omnipotent computer or is it?
He's an omnipotent being. It's later explored in these series of comics that he's actually part of this bigger mystical group of like Ranger Grid people. But
okay.
In the TV series, it's never really fully explained because after a couple seasons, he's gone and replaced by a different boss. So they never explain what happened. They just say like Zordon went off to a different planet. Okay. But they don't really explain. But yeah, he's basically, like, I don't know, the Monitor from DC or whatever other
or like
being.
The creatures that grant the Green Lanterns their rings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Guardians. The Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right.
Or not the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians.
The Guardians. So she's concerned that Tommy's been out of communication for a couple weeks, and this robot, I don't know who the robot is.
Alpha 5. Yeah.
Alpha 5. Because they don't say that the robot's
that's true. They
name.
don't say his name. They just assume you know who it is. They
both tell her that it's not cause for concern because he hasn't used his morphing powers. If they did, they would know right away and check in on him.
And then she brings up some legitimate concerns. He could have been kidnapped by Rita Repulsa, who's the main witch bad girl of the series. You've seen her probably before if you've even watched a little bit of Power Rangers. She's the one who emerges from like an egg shell in the very beginning of the intro.
She wears like
She's the main bad guy.
Ornate hat with like a black wrap around her head.
Yep.
Okay.
That's her. Or he's fighting an evil version of himself, which is the I described before, where that did happen in the comic book series already. Okay. So she has legitimate concerns why he suddenly disappeared.
And on the TV show, he can go back and forth, good guy, bad guy?
Well, in the TV show, he initially started off as a bad guy, and then he became a good guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, kind of like Smurfette.
Yes, exactly like Smurfette. And in fact, that plot is very similar. He was created by Rita Repulsa in order to infiltrate the Rangers, so it's similar to Smurfette kind of thing.
Oh, that's where they lifted the story from. Back in New York, female Foot Clan ninja, which you never see in the cartoon.
No, she's definitely in a later cartoon, and I think maybe the comics. But yeah, she exists in later versions, yeah. Yeah,
her name's Master Karai. I think I'm saying that right. Karai. Is telling the Foot Clan that with every defeat, they become better because they're supposed to learn from their mistakes, although you never see that in the cartoons.
Right. Well, in the cartoon, to get away with the violence, they were all robots, if you remember.
That's true.
Every time they beat them up, they were just robots.
Yeah.
So they could just stab them all they wanted to.
You could get away with robot violence. We learned that Pretty Boy is actually Tommy, which we talked about already, and that he's been part of the Foot Clan for about 3 weeks, which is probably about the time he went missing. Tommy tells the Master that he joined the Foot Clan because everyone turned their backs on him.
Which is not the case. They've always been supportive of him. So I didn't understand what was going on here. I wasn't sure if he was like undercover or he had been brainwashed. Something was odd.
Yeah, or he's just like a sullen teenager.
Well, yeah, that's a given.
They're all teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Because you could tell they're all played by 30-year-olds in the TV show, much like 90210. He's then given a special assignment to break into this science lab and steal a power cell. While he's there, the turtles confront him and get into another fight. And at that point, he turns into the Green Ranger.
I was surprised. So this was like, okay, maybe he's not brainwashed. I wasn't sure what was going on here, but it seemed like when they were fighting, he didn't want to hurt them. So it seemed like, okay, maybe he's undercover for some strange reason.
Yeah. And he knew about them, but it didn't seem like the Turtles knew as much about.
No, I think it was flipped around. I think they knew about him because they knew about Rangers.
That's right.
But he wasn't aware of
Turtles.
Like turtles walking around. Which makes sense because the Ninja Turtles have kind of always been secret vigilantes and not much of the news. Well, I guess April O'Neil always broadcasted them. But, you know, the Mighty Morphin, obviously, you can't hide a big robot fighting other big monsters. So
in this fight, though, Raphael gets the better of the Green Ranger, knocks him through a wall.
Right.
At the same time, the rest of the Power Rangers are able to lock onto the Green Ranger and beam to his location. They interrupt the fight and assume the Turtles, I thought this was pretty funny, must be Rita, what's-her-face's creations.
Repulsa's like monsters, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. They look like monsters, so why wouldn't they?
And having read that comic that Anthony Bourdain did, you could almost see how they are based on
the Kappas.
Yeah, Kappas. How like a Japanese-based TV cartoon cultural series would almost be like, oh yeah, these are the bad guys. They're Kappas.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And then in this scenario, Leonardo faces off with the Red Ranger. Donatello faces off with the Blue Ranger.
That's great. I liked how they paired off because they have the leader facing the leader, the science guy facing the science guy.
Oh, okay. I kind of figured that's what was happening. I wasn't sure. But yeah, Donatello and the Blue Ranger have a really fun exchange about where the Power Rangers' power comes from. And he's like, is it magic?
Right.
It's got to be magic based, right? And he's like, well, kind of. And then I liked how he was like, well, how does the Green Ranger play his flute if he has a mask on?
Right, exactly. Which has always been the question.
And then Michelangelo and the Black Ranger fight, and Michelangelo seems to be aware that of the Power Rangers prior to them getting into this fight.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Pink Ranger asks Green Ranger what he's doing, and he kind of doesn't answer. And this is where I was like, okay, well, maybe he's undercover because he doesn't fight the Rangers. He's just fighting the Turtles.
And he doesn't really want to fight the Turtles.
Yeah.
So yeah, he definitely seems like he's doing this for some other purpose that he doesn't want to reveal to them.
And had he been a bad guy, he would have fought everyone, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what makes the Green Ranger so much better than the rest of the Rangers?
Tommy's a better fighter, and he's got the dragon shield, that gold stuff around his costume.
Oh.
I don't know. The other Rangers can be just as good, but usually kind of the Green Ranger is considered almost like the Boba Fett of the Power Rangers. Like he looks cooler.
And he has a ponytail.
Right. And then he has his own Zord. Now, they all have their own Zords, but they combine, right? His didn't initially combine with theirs. So his was like independent. So he's kind of the loner kind of guy.
He's the independent contractor of the Power Rangers.
Right, exactly.
The rest of them have health insurance and dental coverage and a retirement plan, and he doesn't.
He's just hourly.
Yeah. Raphael winds up fighting both the yellow and the pink Rangers at the same time across the street on another rooftop. Shredder is meeting with Master Karai, and we learn that Shredder has a plan to take control of the Power Rangers by using the Green Ranger. And that's where
they fully are aware that Tommy's not fooling them, and that Tommy was the Green Ranger all along. Yeah. So they had been watching him, and whatever Tommy thought he was pulling over on them, it wasn't fooling Shredder at all.
Yeah, not at all. Well, as you being much more conscious of both properties, what did you think of the series?
I really like it. Now, I will say that I also like the Batman versus the Turtle comic and cartoon. You know, it's just good comic book fun, you know, real popcorn light fare. And I thought this was in line with the voice and the tone of both comics, and I think it's great. And I'm actually looking forward to reading the rest of the storyline. I'm sure it'll involve something where Shredder becomes like part Dragon Ranger, and you know, maybe the Turtles have to morph and become like Turtle Power Rangers, while the regular Rangers learn from Splinter how to become just regular ninjas.
And then Tommy winds up hooking up with April O'Neil.
Oh yeah, probably.
Or he fights Casey Jones.
That's what I was gonna say. Casey Jones hasn't shown up, and Casey Jones is basically like Tommy.
Yeah.
So they would probably point at each other like that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, from an outside perspective, I can tell this was written specifically for you, Dennis. I don't think there's anybody else in the world it was geared towards. No, I think this is a very specific comic book, probably mostly guys between the ages of like 35 and 45 who
For sure.
grew up with both properties, like they were kids. If you were 10 years old when both of these properties kind of made it big, this is your comic book.
Well, and this is probably what you played with in your backyard when you took both action figures. And then it's like, oh, they're going to fight each other. And now it's an actual comic book.
Yeah.
What did you think of the art?
It's serviceable. I really like how they designed the turtles. They each have their own sort of mask length. Raphael's goes a little bit more over the top of his head, and some of them have skinnier masks. So
So it wasn't just the color like in the cartoon. They actually had their own unique design to it.
Yeah, which is I thought was pretty cool. I wouldn't probably read the rest of the series because I just don't have any interest in it, and it wasn't really engaging enough for me. It was so PG-13ish that I was like, meh.
Right.
I would have liked to seen a more grittier story, but I think this is almost like in the same vein as X-Men Grand Design, where if you know the history of it, you're gonna really love it.
Right. Yeah, it's just it's like what Avengers Endgame is. You throw in a bunch of characters that you love, see how they tussle with each other, see how their villains interact, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. I mean, I would recommend it for someone who's a fan of both properties. If you're not, it's like me. It's not.
Right.
It's not interesting enough for me to want to finish it out.
It's definitely not deep.
Yeah. No, not at all. But yeah, that's it. So I think just real quick, just want to say, I hope everyone's staying safe and staying home. And I know Dennis and I are both in our houses. That's why we're recording our tracks separately, although you won't be able to tell. Although we did
Hopefully not.
We did have some syncing up issues at the beginning because Dennis doesn't have any rhythm and didn't know when to
cannot clap.
Didn't know when to come in on the 1, 2, 3 clap. But where can people follow the podcast?
You can follow us on Insta and Twitter at GN Explorers Club.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cowabunga.
Do they have a catchphrase on the Mighty Morphin Portland Rangers?
Yeah. Well, they, Go-Go Power Rangers.
Oh, that's it. No catchphrase, huh?
I don't think so.
No cowabunga or eat my shorts, man?
No.
All right.
Sadly not.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Later.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, we're supposed to wait. Okay, one more time.
Yeah, we have to do it in unison so everything syncs up. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
It's close enough.